Okay, so in this lesson, you're going to find the midpoint of a line segment. Let's start this off by just looking at a at a line segment that's in a coordinate plane. So let's suppose we had the point 4, -1, 4, -1, so that's here. That's point 4, comma, -1. And the other point, the other ordered pair, was 2, -7. Oops, 2, -7. So that's about here. Alright, and so I'm going to draw 2, -7. That's here. So I'm going to draw a segment connecting those 2 points. Draw a segment connecting those 2 points. And I get something that looks like this. Okay? And so the midpoint of this segment looks like it's about here. And so that's the point. And remember, this was 2, comma, -7. 2, comma, -7. And this is the midpoint. And so the midpoint here, or the point here, is 3, comma, -4. So that's your midpoint. Now, remember, the midpoint is the point right in the middle of those of the segment. Now, these are ordered pairs. So these are ordered pairs. So there's an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. Now, I want you to notice something. In a previous lesson, you learned about the midpoint formula. And so the midpoint formula basically said that if you are looking at 2 points, if you're looking at 2 points in a coordinate plane, let's say x1, y1, and this is x2, y2, and you want to find the midpoint of this line segment, we'll call it M, then we saw that this midpoint, or this point that's in the middle of these two, or is in the middle of this segment, is the average, and notice I'm using the word average, is the average of the x-coordinates added together and the y-coordinates. So it's the average of the x-coordinates and the y-coordinates. So in other words, so remember, if you find the average of, let's say you want to find the average of 8 and 10. So remember, what you did was you said 8 plus 10 and then divided by 2. So you get 18 over 2, which is 9. And so do the same thing here. So you can say x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Now don't confuse that with the distance formula. Remember, the distance formula, you subtracted the coordinates. Here you're going to add the x-coordinates, and you're going to add the y-coordinates. Okay? And remember, that's the average. That's how you find the average. So think of this as the average. All right, now the derivation of this formula, this right here, the derivation of this formula was in a previous lesson. So if you need to go back and see how this formula came about, then go to the previous lesson. Now, the handout, remember there's a handout that you're going to use, and in this handout you have this formula here, so the midpoint formula. So again, you're gonna just add your x-coordinates divided by 2, comma, add your y-coordinates divided by 2. Okay? And so if you go back to the one we just looked at, so if my x-coordinates are 4 and 2, you can say 4 plus 2 divided by 2, remember that's your x-coordinate, and so that's 6 divided by 2, which is 3, and that's what we said the midpoint was. And then if you go to the y-coordinates, you can say -1 plus a -7, so -1 plus a -7 divided by 2. -1 and a -7 is a -8, comma, -8 divided by 2. And -8 divided by 2 is a -4. And that's what we said the midpoint was. All right. Now, again, now notice we drew the the diagram here, and we drew the segment, and then we found the midpoint based on the fact that the point lied on a grid. Okay, now not all midpoints. If you draw another segment, it may not. It could possibly not lie on a grid, and so in that case, you would have to estimate, and you don't want to estimate. So that's why we're going to use the formula. So number one. Okay, so let's suppose you want to find the midpoint. So it's a very easy process. You add the x-coordinates together, divide by 2, add the y-coordinates together, divide by 2. So let's look at this example. Okay, so find the midpoint. We're looking at, let's say, -2, -8, and 6, -6 rather, comma, -2. Okay, so if you need to, say x1, y1, x2, y2. And so the formula, remember the formula is this. The formula is make it write a little bit bigger. You're going to say x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And remember, that's the point, so you need those parentheses. So your midpoint will equal, all right, you're going to add the x-coordinates together. It doesn't matter whether you put -2 first or -6 first. It's not matter because you're adding. So you say -2 plus -6 divided by 2, comma, and then the y-coordinates, you can say -8 plus a -2, and then divide by 2. So we're just, it's kind of like finding the average. All right, so -2 plus -6 is -8 divided by 2. -8 plus a -2 is a -10 divided by 2. And so your answer, you got to simplify this. So your answer would be parentheses -4, comma, -5. All right, number 2. Suppose we had, all right, let's suppose we had -4, 6, and -2, -1. Let's suppose we had that. All right, so again, label your points x1, y1, x2, y2. And so your midpoint will equal, all right, so you're going to add the x's together. So -4 plus a -2 divided by 2, comma, 6 plus a -1 divided by 2. So that's going to equal -4 plus a -2 is a -6 divided by 2, comma, 6 plus a -1 is 5 divided by 2. And so I'm going to get, as my answer, I'm going to get 6 divided by -6 divided by 2 is -3, and then 5 halves is a fraction, so just leave this 5 halves. Okay, so your answer is parentheses -3, comma, 5 halves parentheses. So this is your x-coordinate of your midpoint. This is the y-coordinate of the midpoint. All right, and so that's all this is. So that's all the midpoint formula is. Just adding your x's together, divide by 2, add your y's together, and divide by 2, and you're done. All right, so that takes care of the midpoint formula.